We are tying today one of the most famous patterns, the most proven, the pheasant tail. It's on a jigged hook, short body, wide gap. This is a new take on a very old, proven, classic pattern. For sure, guaranteed to catch a trout. So looking at all the materials we need for this guy, it's pretty simple. Pheasant tail for the tail, body, legs, peacock for the thorax, wing case, cinnamon tip turkey, and that real thin flashaboo. A little bit of resin, a little bit of wire, and you'll be there. Just taking a closer look here again, super simple. Red pheasant for tail, body, legs. Thorax is peacock curl. A little bit of flash here and a little bit of cinnamon tip turkey, and that's it. We got a short body, wide gap, fulling mill hook. The Jig 4 short, 5125. It's one of my favorite new nymph hooks. It has a eye that's horizontal instead of vertical, which I really like. And then this is a big old bead, get you down deep. You can also tie it with a smaller one if you'd like. But yeah, that's it. I'll show you guys how to tie it. So this thread I'm using here is one of my favorites. If you've watched these other videos, you can probably guess that I'm using Simperfly Nano Silk on this smaller size 16 hook. This hook I'm using is a 5125 from Fulling Mill. It is a short shank jigged hook with the front is not horizontal. You can see it's not rotated up, so you can't see really through the eyelet unless I rotate it. So it's not really a standard jig hook. It allows you to put a pretty big bead on. I like them a lot. This is my favorite jig hook I've been using right now. It's got a really wide gap, so there's a big margin for hooking fish too. The bead is a hairline slotted tungsten bead, 5/32 or 3/8, I'm sorry, 3.8 millimeters. That is the size of that, and so we're going to start by using dyed red pheasant tail. If you buy it, I buy it in the big clumps from Hairline. It's great, but this is just dyed red pheasant tail, and we're going to start by just taking our wraps to the back and tying the tail in. You want the tail long, but not too long, so like about there. Maybe like the length of the shank-ish is probably good, maybe a little bit shorter. Yeah, I'd go about the length of the shank if you want a reference. So we're going to take these wraps up, messy, whatever. We're just kind of bringing it up even and clipping the rest off. Make sure this bead is flipped up with the slot up right here. And next what we're going to do is we're going to run this wire down the back, and this is soft wire, gold, size small, and we're just going to tie this in right here, run it to the back, and I had about 5 or 6 fibers for the tail. If you do less, it just looks kind of weird. If you're kind of a critical tire like I am, it's not really a big deal how many you use, but I like to add more because the tails can break off. CDL is a little bit more sturdy for tails, but pheasant can kind of break off, so I like to add a little bit more in case the fly gets chewed up. And so kind of build a little bit of a body. You don't want to build a huge taper with this stuff. You also don't need a huge taper for this fly, but right now we're wrapping red pheasant tail, same stuff as the tail. We're just going to try to do touching wraps. You can make it look really nice if you take your time. I don't have all day here, so I'm just going to kind of wrap it up. And now that we've got this here, kind of pinch that off up there. And then we are going to snip the excess off here. Then you take this gold wire and we're going to take even wraps up the body like this. Just give you that segmented look, and most importantly, this is going to make your fly last a whole lot longer. If you skip this step, after a couple fish, this thing's going to kind of come unraveled. So if you want to make it even more durable, you can lay some glue down before you wrap the pheasant. I find the wire's enough. And so since this bead's going to flip it, now we're going to be working at this surface. So if you don't have a rotary vise, I would flip the orientation of your hook over right now. Next step is we're going to take a little bit of this micro flashaboo, this really little stuff, and we're going to tie just a little strip of it in here. This will be the flashback part of the wing case. And then next we're going to put a piece of cinnamon tip turkey in, about that wide, wider than you think, because it gets cinched down. And we are going to tie that in, if the thread can grab it, just like that. Next, strung peacock curl from hairline. Take more pieces than you think, because you want that thorax to have a little bump. I take about 4 pieces. We're going to tie them in, make sure it's really good and secured. And then we are going to wrap these up to the front, right behind the bead. And this will actually help push the bead forward too. And I go over it a couple times to get a decent size body right there. And it'll also help splay the legs out if you fill it in all the way too, because that little notch between the bead and the peacock will actually push the legs out. And so I'll do the front side first for you guys for the legs. And so you take about 4 or 5 fibers here, and you're gonna kind of get them up against the side of the body here. And then you are going to pinch it into that slot right there, and you'll see it flares out. You're gonna pull it tight, and then cinch it down tight, just like that. That was a little bit too much. Just like that. And then you'll see it sticks out perfect, just like that. Before you pull it tight, make sure it's at the right length. Otherwise, it's hard to go back. You use kind of a little bit of pressure to guide it in, and then when you have it at the right length, from slipping the feather through, then you kind of pull down on it pretty hard. Take a couple of wraps to secure that side. We're going to do the same thing over here. Get it into the right zone where you want to be. Doesn't need to be perfect. The fish aren't that picky, but a lot of us tyers are a little bit more picky, so get it to where you think it's good. And so that looks good to me. And we'll trim this excess off here. And then we'll pull this wing case over right here. Just like that. Done. And then we'll pull the flash over, and then you got a killer little jigged pheasant tail that just crushes fish. It's got a big bead, so it's great in high water. It's even better when the flows are not too high also, just because it's not a huge fly, so the fish need to be able to see it. And we'll snip that off. Take a couple of whip finish there, put a little bit of resin on it, and it's ready to fish. Solar is bone dry right here. I'm going to put a little dot on the wing case, as well as a little dot on the thread wraps right there. That'll kind of make that wing case glow, and it'll secure those thread wraps. And now you got your fly. You got your little jigged pheasant tail, red. Go out there and get after some fish.